What's going on, guys? This is Lior with Compass, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to perform an analysis on rental property investing, specifically around the greater Boston area. Now, the reason why I thought I would do this, I've had a lot of you guys reach out to me recently and ask me for advice about what it's like to invest in real estate, to buy rental property around the area, as well as some of the expectations you should be ready for in terms of financials. So what I thought I would do in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly for you how I analyze the income side of things, how I analyze the expense side of things, how I come up with a lot of my assumptions, and how to actually calculate real cash flow numbers to make sense of whether this is a good financial decision for you or not. Now, a lot of this is going to be based both on my personal portfolio. I own about 35 units around the Boston area as we speak today. So a lot of these assumptions are based on what I've seen in my own portfolio, as well as the other investors that I network with and talk to. I kind of have a really good feeling of where those numbers should pencil out to. So if you've been looking at making a move, whether it's house hacking or just straight up buying an investment property around the Boston area, make sure you stay tuned because I think this video is going to provide tons of value. So with that, let's get at it. What's going on, guys? My name's Lior and I'm with Compass out of Boston, and I am super excited to make this video for you guys talking about how to analyze investment property around the Boston area. But before we get into it, two super quick things for you guys. Number one, if this is your first time on my channel, welcome. I hope you like it. But just as importantly, make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. I put out tons of new videos every single week. I cover everything from real estate investing, lifestyle around the Boston area. I talk about different neighborhoods, what they feel like, how it's like to live in them, and literally everything in between. So if that's the type of content you're looking for, make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And number two, if you guys are thinking about doing anything with real estate, whether it's buying, selling, investing, leasing, whatever it is, it still blows my mind every single day just how many of you guys watching my videos reach out to me, and I still love every one of you guys, and thank you so much for doing that. This is literally my passion. So if you guys are thinking about making any moves within the greater Boston market as it relates to real estate, make sure you hit me up on phone, text, email, Instagram, Facebook, whatever pleases you, and we'll connect, and I will definitely help you out and get the job done. So with that, let's get right into today's content in terms of how to actually analyze a rental property. And I'm gonna break it down for you guys pretty simply, right? We're gonna tackle first the income side of it, how to analyze the income side of the rental property, and then we're gonna tackle the expense side. Now, if you guys want the true kind of like financial tool, the analysis tool, or I've created an Excel sheet where I kind of bang all of these assumptions out, make sure you hit me up and I'll definitely email that to you. But I'm gonna kind of talk about these verbally because I think a lot of people really relate to like understanding these concepts verbally before they see them down on a complicated Excel sheet. So first, let's talk about the income side. And on the income side, it is pretty straightforward in terms of rental property. Basically, what you're gonna be doing is, analyzing what can I generate on an income basis from renting these units out, right? So whether you're looking at a single family, a condo, a 2-family, 3-family, whatever it is, you need to do a market analysis, right? To understand, hey, what can this kind of unit, right, in this particular city/location, right, based on the number of bedrooms, based on the number of bathrooms, based on the square footage, based on the condition, based on the extra amenities like parking and unit laundry and all that stuff, based on all those factors, what can I reasonably expect to rent this unit out, right? So let's say we're looking at a 2-family, right? Let's say we're looking in Medford, right? And let's say we got 2 bedrooms on each unit, right? I can tell you, depending on the exact location in Medford, you're probably looking at somewhere between $2,300 to $2,500, $2,600 maybe if it's in really good shape, in terms of monthly rental income. Now, if you don't really know how to get that number, right? Let's say you're not sure exactly what the rents are for a particular city or a particular type of rental unit. You've got a couple of options. Your best one, reaching out to a local realtor, right? They know they should know their market, and they should be able to give you rent pretty quickly off the bat. Other things you can do is you can go like on websites like apartments.com, even like Zillow, realtor.com. Look at rentals and see what rentals are getting, or what people are asking for specific types of rentals. That's pretty easy as well. You have other resources like Rentometer, which you can put in a specific city or area, and it'll kind of give you a ballpark range of different rental values you can expect. Again, I think the best resource is obviously just go someone on the ground who can tell you, hey, for this kind of product, for this kind of location, this is what you can expect. But of course, if you want to do your own research, there certainly are plenty of resources out there that can help you really narrow that down. Now, one other thing I'll say about the income side too is you do need to account for the fact that we are in a slightly different market now that it's COVID, right? Pre-COVID, the Boston rental market was incredibly strong. But since COVID has hit, and I've done a lot of videos on this, the rental markets certainly have shifted in the greater Boston area, right? Areas like really prime time areas like downtown, Cambridge, Somerville, Brookline, a lot of these, Brighton, a lot of these markets have shifted in values in terms of rentals. Some of them are down as much as 10, 15%, maybe even more depending on the exact area. So make sure you're using the most up-to-date data when analyzing these rentals, because you don't want to make the assumption that you're going to get 2019 rentals, pre-COVID rentals, rental values, as opposed to today's rental value. Next, let's talk about probably the more complicated section, right? The income isn't too bad. It's just matching beds, bath, square footage to what an area can command. But expenses are a little bit more complicated. So let's actually go through some of the expenses you should consider and expect to get hit beyond just your typical mortgage payment, right? Because one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a real estate investor is saying, I'm gonna buy this I'm gonna buy this rental property, and my only expense is gonna be my mortgage and taxes, and the rest I'm just gonna make as money every month, right? Unfortunately, that's just not reality. There's quite a bit of what I call operating expenses involved in managing a rental property that you need to account for. And if you don't, believe me, you're gonna get bitten pretty hard and it's not gonna be fun. So let's start with the first operating expense, which is a repairs/maintenance budget. And basically what a repairs maintenance budget is it's a budget every single month that you're gonna more than likely incur for just regular maintenance, right? You're buying rental property, right? You're buying brick and mortar, you're buying things that break, and the chances are if you buy an investment property, every month you're gonna have some sorts of issues, right? You're gonna have, clogged toilet, you're gonna have issues with your sinks, some issues with your electrical, maybe a tenant breaks a window, breaks a door, whatever it is, right? I mean, I've been investing for almost 4 or 5 years now, and I've literally seen every repair under the sun, and I can tell you they're gonna come at a consistent basis, right? You might not incur a repair bill one month, but you will certainly incur it the next month. So you need to plan on budgeting a repairs and maintenance budget. Now, in terms of how much, that's kind of a different conversation, and it kind of depends on the type of property you're buying, right? And the size of the property. If you're buying a condo, something like maybe $100-150 a month is probably gonna be pretty reasonable. But if you're gonna be buying a 3-family, right? Let's say you're buying a 2 or 3 family, you're gonna have multiple tenants, you're buying an old building, especially around the Boston area, you are certainly gonna incur you're gonna need a larger repair and maintenance budget. I usually like to put somewhere around $300 to $400 per month, depending again on the size, the type of building and everything. Now, you might think that's crazy and that's so much money, but believe me, when you get into the swing of things with investment property, things happen. You're gonna incur these expenses. Unfortunately, there's just no way around it. Number 2 thing you need to account for as an investment property is vacancy. And here's what I mean by vacancy, right? Basically, if you're gonna be buying an investment property, you cannot make the assumption that your unit or units are going to be rented 100% of the time for the duration of your ownership, right? It's just an unrealistic assumption to make, right? Because chances are, even if you buy a building or a condo that's already occupied with a tenant, chances are at some point that tenant is going to leave, pack their bags, and there's going to be some period of time, whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, where you're not going to be collecting rent from that unit. And you need to budget for that on the front end, right? Again, you can't assume that you're always going to be collecting a rent check. It's just not a reasonable assumption to make. So that's why you have something called a vacancy budget. Again, this is just a monthly budget that you're obviously not going to incur every month, right? Because, you know, if a tenant's in your unit, boom, you're collecting 100% of the rent, all good. But maybe you don't, you know, even though I tell you to budget for every month, you're only going to incur it once every so often when a tenant moves, right? So it could be once a year, once every 2 years. But that period of, say, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months is going to be a good amount of money, right? And that's why I tell you to budget it on a monthly basis, because that way you won't take one really big hit when that tenant moves out and it kind of catches you off guard. Number 3 thing you need to be cognizant about and be budgeting for is utilities. And let's talk about from a multifamily perspective first. So let's say you're going to buy a 2-family, 3-family, or 4-family. What you're going to incur every single month, no matter the property, is going to be a water and sewer bill. In Massachusetts, you cannot charge back the water and sewer bill to the tenants, right? You can't make them pay for it unless you sub-meter the water. Now, that is incredibly rare. I think I've only seen that on 1 or 2 properties, honestly. Most buildings, most properties around Boston, they only have 1 meter for the entire building. So what that means is you're only getting 1 bill. So it's illegal for you to say, well, you know what? I get 1 bill. I'm just going to divide it 2 ways or 3 ways between all my tenants, right? You can't do that, because then one of your tenants is going to say, well, John upstairs is using more water than I am, or Sally downstairs, they've got a big family. I'm sure they use way more water than I do. So why am I splitting it evenly with them, right? So for that reason, since there's not separate meters, there's only typically 1 water meter, you as the landlord are obligated to pay that water bill. Now, in terms of how much that's going to cost, again, depends on type of building and definitely size of building, right? If you're going to have a 2 or 3 family with 1-bedroom units, your water bill is going to be a whole lot different than, say, if you have units with 3 or 4 bedrooms, right? Because you're probably going to have more you're going to have more toilets, you're going to have more people using water throughout. I'd say on average, a safe assumption I like to make is somewhere around $75 per unit per month, right? So if I've got a 2-family, somewhere around $150, maybe $175 is a pretty safe bet. If I've got a 3-family, I'll probably be somewhere around $225, $250. Again, this is not a perfect science. The water rates differ by cities, but this is a pretty safe and relatively accurate approximation you can make that you can feel good about. The other utility you're gonna have to account for is any common utilities, right? So, I talked about metering and the water side. Let's talk about the electrical side, right? If you're gonna buy a multifamily, most multifamilies have individual electrical meters for each unit, right? So, if unit 1 is using a bunch of lights, they've got their own meter. They're going to get their own bill that they're going to be responsible for to pay for. And same thing with unit 2 and unit 3 or however many units you have. Now, what you have to account for, though, is the common space, right? Because in the common space, things like basement lights, right? Things like hallway lights, things like front porch lights, back porch lights, or anything in between, right? Those are things you legally cannot charge back to the tenant, right? Because again, why would a tenant pay for the basement lights, right? They'll just say, oh, you know what? I don't use the basement lights. Sally upstairs goes to the basement way more than I do, right? So you kind of get the drift of where I'm going with this. So you're going to have to account for paying that common electrical meter. That is very common in a lot of multifamilies. The next line item you want to account for is snow/landscaping. Now, again, this is definitely a lot more pertinent if you're buying a multifamily rather than a condo, because with condos, you typically have something in the association where they do snow removal or landscaping. But if you're buying a 2, 3, or 4 family, that is all on you, right? And obviously in Boston, from like November to April, we get snow here, and it is the landlord's legal responsibility to be responsible for snow. And unless you're gonna plan on waking up at 5 a.m. every time there's a snowstorm to go shovel your property, you probably wanna go just hire a snow removal guy. So that's a cost you're gonna incur, quite often. And same thing with landscaping. In the summer, it obviously does get hot and it rains a lot. You're probably gonna have some plants or trees or shrubs or whatever that need attention to. So that's why I say create a monthly budget for your landscaping / snow removal to take care of your property throughout the year. And last but not least is taxes and insurance. I know I mentioned taxes up front. Most people understand, yes, if I'm gonna buy real estate, I'm gonna be responsible for that tax bill. You also need to account for your insurance bill as well, right? You're gonna wanna buy dwelling coverage for your property. Now, in terms of insurance rates, that's a whole nother animal that we can talk about in another video, and that's certainly different between multifamilies and single families versus condos. Condos is kind of a different game in terms of insurance. But just understand that you will be billed for your taxes and you will need an insurance policy. So that's another expense that you absolutely have to budget for on a month-to-month basis. So those are all the expenses that you really need to account for when analyzing investment property. Again, I know the point of this video was to kind of give you guys the rationale and the ideas behind what you need to incur. If you guys are looking for like the more financial aspects of it, just hit me up and I'll help you, and I'll share with you guys my personal Excel sheet I use to analyze rental properties. That way you can kind of put a little bit more harder figures to the stories I've been telling in this video. But hopefully that makes sense, guys. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the concepts you need to understand between the income and the expenses if you're thinking about investing in real estate around the Boston area. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, just shoot them below and I will help you out.